What's up everybody, this is Rich with Lifetime Shred and we're talking boats again today. There's some really great deals out there, which is why I've been making some of these boat videos. If you wanted to get into wakeboarding, you don't need to spend $250,000. You could spend much less. And one boat I want to talk about under $30,000 is the original 210 Super Air Nautique, made from 1999 to 2006. So we'll get into talking about the different years of the boat. We'll look at some deals that are out there. But first I just wanted to cover why this boat. So this is one of the original, full-on wakeboard boats. I covered in my past video about the Sport Nautique. You had the original 2001 Nautique, then you had the Sport Nautique, Super Sport Nautique, and then eventually you end up with the Super Air Nautique, a V-drive boat. And this boat really catapulted with the growth of wakeboarding and was one of the most popular boats back in the day. And it's still a popular boat to pick up now as well. So getting into this wake itself, I have some experience on this boat. I got to ride on the original ones back in the day and some of the regional competitions that we had in upstate New York around Canandaigua. Also got to demo some of the boats back then, and I remember just loving it back then. Huge pop on the wake. It was just amazing. Up till a few years ago, my buddy Ryan Shimabukuro had a 2002 Super Air Nautique that we rode a good amount. I've described this wake. It's going to be tons of pop. It's almost like hitting, people say hitting a curb, but it's got a very strong communication. When you hit the wake, it's going to pop you straight up in the air. You're going to know you're in the air. You're going to be able to execute your trick and come down. And I think that's one of the reasons people like this wake a lot, is that strong pop, strong communication, strong feeling into the air. Really does great with a 3-stage board, especially, I would say. In terms of that riding too, this boat has a long legacy with famous pros back in the day, whether that was Sean Murray or the late great Randall Harris. I'll call it Randall specifically. You should definitely go and watch his Natural Born Thrillers part to see what's humanly possible on this wake. Again, no one's gonna ride like Randall ever again. No one rode like him back in the day. That's just crazy how much air he gets. It's insane, like on that method. But really just all his riding in general. He went so big, and a lot of that was on this original 210 wake. Another reason I like this boat is it was a smaller, lighter boat, so the dry weight was around 3,200 pounds. So with gear, gas, trailer, etc., you're at around 5,200 pounds towing down the street. And that means a lot of SUVs could tow this. There's a lot of SUVs with like a 7,700 pound tow capacity that could tow this boat very safely, very easily. Towing less weight, you're probably getting a little better mileage towing as well. Speaking of mileage, out on the lake itself, from what I've seen looking around forum posts and what I think I remember Ryan saying, it usually gets about 4 to 5 gallons per hour, riding, wakeboarding. You look at some of the newer boats, like I know for me in my 2022 Axis 822, probably more at like 10, double the mileage here that you're getting, or double the wakeboard time that you're getting on the same amount of gas. Another thing about this boat, it's just like a Nautique. I think Nautique has made great boats for many, many years, and this is no exception. The fiberglass is great. They use good engines, generally good instrument gauge clusters, but we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get down to the year-to-year breakdown. And another thing I would call about this boat too is it's got a modest size. We've got some really heated debates going on around the country right now around wake boats. I'm going to say it. It's because of wake surfing. People are blasting people's docks. People are blasting people in fishing boats with these huge wake surf waves. And especially in the Midwest, there's lakes that are banning wakeboard boats and et cetera, But what I like about this boat, it kind of flies under the radar. It's a V-drive boat. It's a wakeboard boat. You can go big on it, but it's lower to the water. It's a more narrow beam. It's 21 feet long. It's just going to fly a little under the radar. So if you live on a lake where there's a little bit of heat around wake boats, this thing's not going to catch the attention that something like a newer G23 or something like that would. Now getting into the 1999 Super Air Nautiques of the first year. So, they took the Super Sport, which was a V-drive, and it had the total weight control hull, and they put a tower on it from the factory. So this is the classic flight control tower. They added hard tank ballast so you could weight the boat down, and then it was a wakeboard boat, and then it went from there. So yeah, as I run through these years, there's going to be a lot of details, and I am going to include that in the description below. And shout out to people who have posted on Planet Nautique, Correct Craft Fans, and other forums in the past. That was super helpful. I had some of it in my head, but that really helped me piece it together. So let's jump into a year-by-year breakdown so you can kind of understand how the boat evolved from 1999 to 2006. So 1999, the Super Air Nautique comes to be. In this first year, it had the GT40 engine, which was really reliable. You know, the boat also had the classic, or what became classic, flight control tower. It also had, you know, a teak swim platform. The dash that it came with came over from the Sport Nautique as well. You know, on the front of the engine, it did come out with the Python 502 engine right off the bat as well as an option. This whole boat packaged on the TWC total weight control hull. So all in all, you know, a great wakeboard boat to kick things off. And then you go into 2000. Not a ton of changes, but one big one was they did upgrade the dash majorly to the SmartPod layouts. This was still like a much more modern layout than that previous dash. Otherwise, 2000 wasn't way different from 1999. 2001, we start seeing some more updates. 1999s and the 2000s had kind of this wrap seating, and then they switched it to a stadium style seating. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. I've never sat in a 99 or 2000 with the full wrap, even though that's how most boats are now. But with the stadium seating, there was room behind the driver for like a cooler or something. I know my buddy Ryan had a custom seat made that was movable, so a rider could sit there, you know, nice to keep the boat balanced left to right. 2001 also saw a change to the rear hatch. So 99 and 2000 had a single piece hatch over the engine. In 2001 though, it goes through the 3-piece rear hatch, which you see on a lot of boats today as well. So some good changes there. You know, I will say 99, 2000, 2001, they all had kind of the sloped back, which the Sport Nautique also had at that time. Not really a big deal, but smaller deck, you know, maybe not as much access to the part of the engine towards the rear of the boat. In 2002, this was like a big redesign. So they squared off the transom of the boat, which created a little bit more space. And then also in 2002, it was also the last year of the GT40 engine. And I call that out because the GT40 was a very reliable engine, but it was only 310 horsepower. So, you know, people are starting to ballast these boats more. So 2003, Super Air Nautique. This is a lot of people's favorite year of the Super Air Nautique for a lot of different reasons. It moves to the new dashboard design, which had like bigger gauges and then smaller gauges, so it's just a little more modernized. You also start to see more fiberglass swim platforms. So all the previous years, it's pretty much all teak. Teak's classic, but it also has a lot of maintenance involved in it. The fiberglass swim platform was also bigger, so a little bit more room to get your board on. And then, you know, I was just alluding to the GT40 engine. So in 2003, you start seeing the switch over to the Excalibur 330, which has pros and cons. So 330 horsepower. It's a little bit stronger of an engine. I think some people would maybe argue the GT40 was a little bit easier to maintain. You know, with the 330, it is an EFI engine, had really good power, but that was a major change. And something else about 2003 that makes it special, you could still get that Python engine if you wanted, you know, extra horsepower, maybe a really high elevation. It was also the last year in terms of the gel coats on the boat that you could get a colored deck. So, you know, some of the classic like all black Super Air Nautiques of this era, maybe with like a blue stripe or something. Hopefully I can have a picture here. 2003 was the last year you could get that colored deck on top. So those 02, 03s, really popular boats, but I think the 03 might be the one that people seek out the most in that older block of this generation of the Super Air Nautique. Now 2004 was kind of a strange year. So yeah, you lose that upper color on the upper deck. Still has the same engine, the Excalibur, but now you've lost the Python engine, but it's got a new tower. So this tower, people didn't really like it at the time. You know, when I look at it, it doesn't really bother me. It doesn't have that classic aesthetic of the sharp lines of the original flight control tower, but it still works. Sometimes 04, you know, if you're looking at boats, you might get a little bit extra deal because people don't love that tower. Sometimes you even see people where they actually remove that tower and put on the original flight control tower. But that's the main call out for 2004. Going into 2005, they switched the tower back to the original sharp line flight control tower, and they also did some other upgrades. So on some of the team edition boats, they brought back a bigger engine. So now they had the ZR6 engine, which was 375 horsepower. So if you're at high elevation, this is a big performance upgrade. Again, if you're running a lot of weight in the boat as well. And then the last year of the Super Air Nautique was 2006, at least for this generation. This year actually had a lot of changes. They actually did a new tower that was kind of, as you can see in the pictures here, a little bigger looking, I guess, at least on that size hull. Also, they did some mechanical changes to the engine with the V drive. They also added in reversible pumps. So lots of little tech upgrades for the last year in 06. All right, so the fun part. Let's see what's out there. What could we buy? So we're going to start old, and then we're going to work our way to newer. So kicking it off in Georgia 4 weeks ago, we've got a 1999 Super Air Nautique. You know, when I look at this one, obviously there's been a wrap on this or some kind of gel coat something, because that's not exactly how they used to look. But you know, you got the flight control tower, and this is $16,000. What does he say? I'm very solid boat, new interior, throws a fantastic wave, trailer's good condition, and that's about it. So not a lot of information there, but you know, I look at this boat, you know, it's all white, does look pretty clean. But yeah, that's $16,000. So if this actually works and you live in that area and you could go test drive it, you could be on a classic wakeboard wake for 16 grand. Pretty crazy. So let's go a little newer. 2000. So I mentioned the Python engine. This is so cool looking on the top of that. So this boat's 30 grand. I mean, this is kind of a collector's boat, 30,000, but that's the Python. But let's go to a normal one. 2000 Super Air Nautique for $19,000. So a little bit more money. You know, this one specifically, I was looking at this, let's see. Yeah, clean title, trailer in hand, boat works. Looks like it needs a little help though. Some of the bilge pumps aren't working exactly correctly. You know, I was looking at this one too. You know, it just looks like it needs a little love. That might be more of a project boat, but $19,000, as long as it runs decent, might be worth it. So that's a 2000. Let's go a little newer. 2001, another boat in Georgia. So this boat actually looked pretty clean, if I remember right. It's got that GT40 engine in it, and oh yeah, this one's got the fill cushion here up in the bow, and you can move that one behind the seat. So that's pretty cool, because a lot of them are missing that seat, but that's pretty awesome. But yeah, this is a 2001, 364 hours, but $25,000 here, so definitely going up in price from the last two, but this looks like a nicer boat to me. Going a little bit newer, let's check it out. We're a 2002 Team Edition. Now this boat looks pretty beautiful, and this is when you're getting into that squared out transom. As you can see though, they have done some upholstery stuff. They replaced the top hatch in the back, and this is, you know, when you're going to that three-piece hatch. Actually I think that was 2001, but with some sea deck or something like that. And yeah, but all in all, you know, this is a nice boat too. GT40 engine. Looks like they've upgraded the soft bags in the rear lockers. There isn't anything on this boat that doesn't work properly. We always like to see that. And 340 hours, I mean, that's really not a lot of hours for a boat that old. That sometimes like would worry me in different ways, because you don't want things sitting for a long time, especially engines. But overall, you know, maybe you go test drive this, do a compression check on the engine, check out the gel coat, it's looking good. This could be a really good deal. And it is getting into that squared off transom for a little more room. 2003. So we've got this is in Wisconsin, 03, comes with 2 fat sacks and pumps, 2 covers, single axle. A lot of these have single axles, you know, towing single axle. I have an RV trailer I do that with. I would much rather be in a dual axle if you can. It's going to track better. If a tire blows out, it's not as big of an issue. But, you know, with this one, you're getting that dual axle, so that's pretty cool. Kind of unique. I don't know if this is like a German inspired color scheme. But the 03s, you know, this was one of the years that people seek out the most for the reasons I laid out in the year-to-year comparisons. But yeah, I think that's a pretty nice looking boat. I think this one also has a new interior, if I remember right. I guess it doesn't say. But also, you know, getting into like the newer dash, which is nice as well in the 03s with these bigger clusters here. So yeah, 2003. Let's go a little newer. And over to here, 2004. So this is when you get into that tower that some people don't like. I'm not aware of a mechanical issue from that tower, but if there is an issue, say it in the comments below. You know, this boat's kind of interesting. They definitely took some modern liberties here with the Super Air Nautique on the side, getting into that fiberglass composite swim deck there, which is nice, less maintenance than the teak. You're also getting into the Excalibur 330 engine here. I think, let's see, did this have the 330? Let's just look real quick. I don't know, we don't have a picture of it. I would assume the 03 has the 330 as well. You'd have to check with that person. But yeah, this boat though, you know, it looks really good, really clean, and it might be totally fine. It does have almost 1,300 hours on it. Something to be cognizant of. located in Michigan. But again, 21,500. All the boats we've been looking at, other than that one Python, are all under 25 grand. Some of them are closer to 20 grand. So some really good deals out there. Let's go 05. I think this was actually my favorite. I just love the colors on this. I've been kind of digging black, orange, gray lately a little bit. It's got the orange tower, which is pretty sick. This engine, or this boat as well, has a special engine. So in 05, you could get the ZR6 engine. Being here in high elevation, this is something I might look for, just for a little extra horsepower. So 375 horsepower there. Let's see what else they say. Runs perfectly, no problems. Everything as it should be, 900 hours. See, 900 hours for a boat that's 20 years old, that's around 50 hours, 45 hours a year. I mean, that sounds pretty normal, pretty reasonable. Not like a heavy user, but like not a no user either. You know, I don't know. This boat just looks great. And obviously with that engine, I think this is the one I'd probably be hunting down, but it says it was listed 25 weeks ago. It's probably gone. Let's go a little newer. 2006, the last year of the original 210. Here's one 6 weeks ago in Michigan. It's kind of got some like Monster energy drink vibes going on. Also made it in just in time for there to be a little bit of tribal on the side of the boat. So that was like really popular in the mid 2000s. I think we all laugh about it now, but yeah, you get the tribal Air Nautique logo on the side here. A little more expensive though. We're at $31,000, and I do see this with a lot of the 06s, more closer to $30,000. Does have that more modernized tower, 460 hours, 3 ballast tanks, you know, and the other upgrades that you saw in 06 that kind of added in right at the end there. But a nice looking boat for sure. Those are some options you might want to think about, you know, give you an idea of everything from under $20,000 up to $30,000. The older you go, less expensive it's going to be. I think it's a great boat. It's a classic boat. I'd almost love to have like a little model one. Now, ballast setup. If you were to buy one of these boats, what are you going to do? A lot of these boats have already been modded a little bit in the ways I'm going to describe. You had hard tank ballast in the rears here. Just takes up a lot of room in those rear lockers. Plus, you're stuck with the capacity of those hard tanks. So companies like Wake Makers has a kit that you can do to kind of remove those hard tanks and then stick in some soft bags. You could also kind of just put these parts together yourself. But that's going to be the first suggestion, is take out the hard tanks. You know, the other thing you're going to want to do in this boat, it really needs nose weight. So something like a 600-pound sack, like a triangle or something like that on top of the seats and the nose is going to go a long way. Or, you know, maybe one of those cylinder type ones against the seats. I think when I rode this, I've always been a 75-foot line guy. I think I was riding 23.2 when Ryan sold that boat, because I was kind of metering down my speed at that time. But, you know, overall, most people are riding these boats at 75 to 80 feet, you know, anywhere from like 23 to 24 miles an hour. With that said, have you ridden the original 210 Nautique? What do you think about that wake? Definitely comment below. Is there another boat that you're looking at in this price range that you think I should chat about? I've already covered the Malibu VLX original, and this is the Nautique 210. I think the other one that I've actually never ridden, so I might not make a video about it, is the Mastercraft, the original X-Star. Anyway, bid you adieu. Hope you're having fun out there this summer. Yeah, we're out here riding Utah. It's been fun, and I'll catch you later. Bye.